So know that you will be recorded. All right, so we're going to take a deep breath and begin our work for this evening. If you have a chalice, feel free to take a moment to light a chalice in your own space. I'm going to share some opening words to begin. We light the flame of knowledge. May understanding be with us. We light the flame of love. May caring be among us. We light the flame of holiness. May the unifying spirit be within us. So now we are going to, I'm going to stop sharing, and the full gallery of faces will be on display, and we're going to invite you to introduce yourselves. So name, let us know where you are calling in from, either the city or the state and the state. If you're with All Souls or First Unitarian, be sure and tell us which one, because there are many with that name. And just give us a sense of the size program that you are serving, small, medium, large. If you know a number, that's helpful as well. But just to get a sense of who's in the room and what kind of challenges you may be dealing with. And then finally, how long have you been involved in religious education? And so this is a new DRE webinar. So we're guessing that many of you are either in a new position or new to the work entirely, but you may not be new to religious education. You may have worked as a RE teacher or a committee. So sort of what's the breadth of how long you have been in this work, in this pool. So I am actually going to call on people because it's easier to do it that way. That way, I will go across my Brady Bunch lineup, and if you're not ready to share when I call on your name, it's perfectly fine. Just say pass. If you prefer to just introduce yourself in the chat box, that would be all right as well. So let's get our faces back. Yay! All right, Jess Simon. You are the first person in my gallery. Would you like to say hi?
Hi, I'm Jess Simon. I am with the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Wyoming Valley, which is in Pennsylvania, Northeast PA. Our program size, we have about, I think, 18 children and youth. We have a congregation of about 60, so we're a small congregation. I've been RE chair for about 5 years, and our DRE just retired, so I am now the DRE as of this year.
Thank you. Wonderful. Carol. You're muted, Carol, so let's see if we can get you unmuted.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I started last November as what we call Youth Spirit Coordinator. My church is Wellsprings Unitarian Universalist in outside of Philadelphia, near Downingtown, Pennsylvania. I'm not new to education. I've been an aide in our local school district for about 9 years, but I am completely new to religious education. Does that cover all of them? Okay.
I think you got it.
Yes. Program.
Oh, size of program, pardon me. Yeah. So I probably have about 25, up to 25 kids all told, but we also have a nursery, and we haven't really done anything with our teens, and we're growing.
Great. Thank you. Christine, you're next.
Symbol on the screen. Let me
You
unmute.
are unmuted.
I'm unmuted?
You are.
All right. So I am Christina Brenna Martin, and I am in an area just north of the center of Atlanta. So we've got a large church in the center of Atlanta and then 6 kind of surrounding by geographic area. And I'm in a very, very conservative little swath of the state. And that big Democratic race for Georgia, which lost, sadly, was in the district where our congregation is. So my program is 65 children and youth and about 10 additional in the nursery. So pretty decent size for me, at least as a new DRE. I'm not new to RE as a person who grew up in YRUU and then had children. One is a senior in high school and one is 4. And I've taught OWL 7 times. So it's not new, but it's a new role. And it is, the first classes are taught September 10th, and we started the RE year on August 1st when everyone went back to school. So we are full swing already, and I'm already nervous.
Oh boy. Okay. Well, hopefully the question and answer time will be good time for you.
Yeah. I might leave for 5 minutes and go grab something out of the oven, and I'll be back.
That is quite all right. I just see that the light was weird on my screen, so I'm trying to fix that. And I had the pleasure of meeting Christina at the mountain this summer. She was there for a Renaissance module. So good to see you again. Lizzie, you are next.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, super. My name is Lizzie Vina. The title I hold is Director of Lifespan Faith Development. Brand new to the position as of June 1st. I am from the Thomas Paine UU Fellowship. We are in Collegeville, Pennsylvania, so that's about an hour northish of Philly. Our congregation is small. I think we're approaching 70. Last year, the program had 13 children registered. We're re-registering everyone now, so I'm hoping that not only I capture everyone, who had been involved before, but recapture some folks who have sort of wandered away a little bit. Like I said, the position is brand new to me. I have been volunteering with the RE program for maybe 3 or 4 years and the chair of the committee for the last 2. And my background is in early childhood education, so I've been administering programs for more years than I would like to admit.
Great. Thank you. All right. Jeanette.
I'm Jeanette. I'm from Unitarian Universalist Church of Hamburg, New York, which is right outside of Buffalo, New York. The city has the bigger congregation. We are very small. I am the 19th member, adult member, so it's a very small congregation. We don't have a DRE to my knowledge. I think there are 3 of us signed up to take turns doing RE this coming season, so we just kind of pass it off week to week. And we have about, I would say on a good day, maybe 12 kids, and that can vary, 3 to 4 on a smaller week. So this is new to me, although I've been involved in the UU Church of Buffalo before in their RE as a parent and with my kids, but not teaching. So all new.
Good. Well, welcome. Kate.
Hi. I think I might be somebody that's been a DRE probably longer than anybody else here. It's been 2 years, but I am not a UU and was not a DRE or did not teach RE or do anything prior to that. So the first year was kind of trying to figure out what I was doing, and this past second year I've been reaching out and doing more things with the UUA. So I think I'm still figuring it out. and like little things like coming of age and other things that I have no clue about. I'm trying to learn more this year. Our congregation is small. We have about 88 members, and we might have 25 kids registered, but you know, we don't have that many show up, obviously. We have a youth group, 2 youth groups, and then an RE program, sort of a one-room schoolhouse type deal. Anyway, I live in West Virginia, but I'm at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Loudon, which is in Virginia. So I commute there and work from home mostly. But yeah, I think that's it. So thank you.
Yeah, and Kate is also a veteran of one of my Renaissance modules, an online module. So good to see you again, Kate. Amanda.
Hi, my name is Amanda Esco. I am with the First Unitarian Church of Salt Lake City, Utah. We have a much bigger program than a lot of your other friends here. We have about 150 kids in our program, and our congregation, members and friends, is about 500. And this is my first year in an official staff position. I have been chair of the RE Council for several years and been teaching in RE, and I've stepped into this paid professional role this year.
Great. Wonderful. Bob.
Hi, I'm Bob Meese, and I am the Children and Youth Coordinator at the UU Church in Livermore, California, which is a little bit east of Oakland. And I have been doing this for almost a year, started September 2 of last year. And I missed having an opportunity like this to get together with newbies. So I figured this would be my opportunity. I've never been involved in religious education as such, but I've certainly been involved in religious stuff, and am quite comfortable around UUs and around UU programs. But because I haven't been a religious educator, I might accidentally do things differently. And who knows, that might work.
That's great. All right. So let's see, we have Ginger. Ginger has done an introduction in the chat. Ginger is with Napa Valley UUs in Napa, California, grew up attending the Mount Diablo congregation and has been teaching at the Napa Church for over 8 years, but just now starting as a DRE. They have about 25 kids and was very involved in YRUU and then UYAN, and she met her husband at GA. Yay! That's a wonderful story. Ginger, if you want to, if you want to unmute for a minute and just say hi, feel free to do that. Otherwise, we're happy to meet you in the chat box. Next is Jen. Her kids are there now. Jen is with the First Parish in Kingston, Mass., which is south of Boston. She's a lifelong UU with a lot of RE experience, but first time serving as a DRE, 30 children and youth in the program. Great. So we have a good mix of folks. We also have a phone number down here, 716. Is there somebody on that phone number who would like to do an introduction?
Hi, I don't know if you can hear me. This is
I can
Wendy.
hear you. I can hear you.
Okay, I'm in the same congregation with Jeanette. Having computer troubles, but I'm on the phone. I'll be listening.
Great.
Very small congregation, so I'm eager to learn whatever we can from you ladies. So thank you.
Okay, what's your first name?
Wendy.
Wendy. Okay, well, I'm glad you're here, Wendy. All right. Thanks, everybody, for doing a quick introduction. And as you can see, there's a lot of diversity here in terms of the number of children in the program, and also the experience that each one of you is bringing to the work. And those things are all matter. But what matters most is that this is work that is new for you, either new to in this congregation that you're in, or first time being a professional. So we're going to focus in on that, and we'll try and point out some different resources or different opportunities for different sized congregations as we go. We try to keep our eye on that. So I am going to share my screen again, and let's return to our work. Okay, I hope everybody is able to see the PowerPoint.
Mm-hmm.
So we are going to tackle 4 big topics. One is this idea of now you are a leader. Either you are a paid leader or a volunteer leader, and your role and your responsibilities have shifted in some way. So you're transitioning to a new place in the congregational system. We're going to talk about the importance of building a network. As religious educators, we're not in an offline, we're not like in a boiler room with 20 other religious educators and we can just pop over the partition and ask somebody, hey, how should I do coming of age? Or hey, what do you know about Tapestry of Faith? Most of us work in a certain amount of isolation. We might be in a staff group where there's an administration, there are administration people, there may be ministry team or minister, or there may be other RE staff, there may be an RE assistant, or we may be the only paid staff person in the building. So the work happens, it happens in such isolation that building that network is really, for us, those of us who've been in the work for a while, we feel like that is one of the first and foremost jobs that you have as a new religious educator. Next Tuesday, we are going to spend lots of time on resources. There are so many resources with the advent of the internet, online curriculum, online Facebook groups. There's a fire hose of information and resources for us out there. So the recommendation that I would make is that you not know the thing. You don't need to know all the things. You don't need to know what the resources are as much as you know where to find them, where to look for things. And there can be some anxiety in that, like, oh my gosh, I have to do something for the first time, and where do I start? So we want to introduce you to some resources and hope that you'll keep a file of those, put tabs and bookmarks for all of those things so that you can return to them as you need them. And then finally, we're going to talk you through just a little bit of a plan for the first 90 days. I realize that some of you are well into your 90 days, but it's just some things that you want to think about, some goals, some longer term strategies, and so we'll walk you through that next time. So that's what we're doing. Just a reminder that in an hour or a 90-minute webinar, mostly what we do is dip our toe into topics. We can't necessarily really delve deeply, but you will be able to contact me. You'll be able to contact Andrea. You will have begun to build your network with the folks who are on this webinar, and you will have some resources to fall back on. So we hope that this is a good start for you, but we're not going to spend a lot of time on any one individual topic. So yay, you're a leader now. You are in wonderful company. There are some pictures of some leaders that are important to us. The one in the very middle, some of you may recognize. It is the new president of the Unitarian Universalist Association, the Reverend Susan Frederick Gray. She was a minister down in Phoenix, Arizona, and now she has moved to Boston to lead our denomination through the next 6 years of its history. So, so Susan is herself transitioning into a new kind of role. We're always changing. So leaders come in lots of different forms, and we bring to that work a lot of different expectations about what it means to be a leader. I'm just gonna, we have a, I'm just gonna try muting. We have a little bit of static or a little bit of disruption here, so let's see if we can make that happen. Who is not muted? We'll try that one. Okay. So, you know, I'm not sure what your expectations are. If you want to, you know, just name a couple in the chat box, that would be great. But you don't have to. It's just, it's more of a rhetorical question. It's something to really think about. You know, what are my expectations for this leadership role? Do I see this as a career? Is this something that I'm in for a short period of time? Is it something that I'm doing in addition to another full-time job? You know, how am I framing this work? Is this something where I want to really dive into professional development and continuing education, or is this something where I see my work as more of a caretaker and more of a leader of volunteers? So there's no one definition of that necessarily. But that's a good question for you to wrestle with yourself. What are my expectations of myself now that I am a leader? Some of you are moving from volunteer to paid staff. And Andrea has posted a great article by the Reverend Dan Hotchkiss about that shift. Andrea, do you want to say anything about that, or?
Well, originally I was the RE chair. I moved into an RE position half-time in a mid-sized congregation and learned everything I know about boundaries by breaking them. So one of my goals is to really help people understand that you can do it very intentionally, and you just need some support and to understand what it is you're giving up and what you're getting, and how to fulfill your spiritual needs in other ways than sitting in the pew. So there, we're going to send you the chat text later, so you don't have to go and look at all these articles I might post right now, but you'll have them for your reference.
Yeah, great, thank you. Yeah, so when you are a volunteer in a congregation, you are a member of that congregation, and as a member, that is your spiritual community. It's the place where you are getting your spiritual sustenance, so to speak. And the minister is your minister. When you move into a paid staff position, the minister may, depending on your governance arrangement, the minister may now be your supervisor. And so there's a lot of tension in that. How can I minister to this person or be ministered to by a person who is evaluating my performance and is holds my compensation and in some respects holds my success in their hands. So we typically recommend that religious educators, except in the very smallest congregations where there isn't another congregation to attend, to consider, attending or even joining a neighboring congregation. And hopefully you have a schedule where you have a Sunday or 2 Sundays off, and use that time to attend another congregation or to attend the Church of the Larger Fellowship, which is an online church ministry. It's actually it's a virtual congregation, but it's actually the largest congregation in our association. So there are options for you, and certainly you will still be in and among the congregation, but your status is different and the relationships will begin to shift. So Again, something to be thinking about if that's a shift that you're doing. Religious educators are often very busy people. We wear the 500 hats of Bartholomew Cubbins. Oftentimes we may be a supervisor. Even if we are in a very small congregation, we are supervising volunteer staff in the form of RE teachers or child care workers, different kinds of RE greeters. So we may be a supervisor. We may actually have paid staff that we're supervising. We are, for many families and for children, they see us as their minister. They may not be going into the larger congregation, the larger assembly of folks on Sunday if you have a large Sunday worship service. So the RE becomes their little space, and you become, in effect, a minister to them. You are not a minister, big M, clearly, but there is this, you have this role, this place that you hold for them. You're a colleague. You are always a cheerleader. You may be an arbiter. You are a partner for leaders. You may be partner for other staff. You may be partner for other folks in the RE, the religious education community. You may be partnering with folks for a variety of reasons. You are definitely an administrator. There is stuff and paperwork that goes along with the religious education work. And you're often a mentor. If you have youth in your congregation or young people in your congregation, you are a role model. You are somebody that they are looking to for how should I be in this, at this moment, and they will look to you. So knowing that you hold many roles, sometimes all at the same time, it's good to take a little bit of time to know yourself. And some ways that you can do that are to think about, what is my working style, and how am I, do I know my own strengths? Do I know my own weaknesses? Do I know, sort of what my hot buttons are? Am I aware of how I react to conflict? And the more that we can kind of poke around, and there are online resources to understand a little bit about your own personality, some personality testing, free testing. Kiersey Bates is one. There are lots of small Myers-Briggs. They're not true Myers-Briggs because those are done by trained facilitators. But it can be useful to just do that, and it can be useful to even share that with your supervisor, or share that with other staff. Sometimes staff may have an annual retreat, and we can have some conversations around what is my conflict style? How do I like to communicate? What is my leadership style? The more we know about each other, the easier it can be to facilitate good, effective, healthy relationships as staff and as leaders. So the responsibilities are broad. Some of you are lifespan, which means that you're typically working with all the way from the cradle to the grave, as they say. You may have responsibility for an adult program as well as children and youth. Typically, you have some responsibility for volunteers. As a director, you are directing the activity and the training and the recognition and the affirmation of volunteers under your care. You have responsibilities to communicate what's happening with the program, to communicate with the volunteers, to communicate with other staff. And we'll talk a little bit later, about some healthy communication practices, because that's an important part of the role, is letting people know, hey, RE is here. In some congregations, RE is a little bit siloed. We are working, I think, as a body, as a profession. We are trying to bring the adults and the children and bring congregations together into more of a multi-generational, holistic community. But that's work that's in process. And in some congregations, there's still very much a separation. The children go off to their classes, and they are there, and adults are here. So communication can be really tricky where there is that sense of siloing. You are a facilities manager, typically in a congregation. The religious education program or department uses as much or more space as any other program in the church, and so as such, you need to have the good communication with the folks who are maintaining the facility. You need to have good communication with whoever's maintaining the calendar to make sure that the space is available when you need it. So there's a lot that happens around facility planning and facility care. You may also have responsibility for other pretty significant programs that take a lot of energy, that maybe take a lot of volunteers, things like Our Whole Lives, sexuality education, coming of age, even a youth group. You may be working with youth advisors in a youth group setting. So there are these other programs that could be a job in and of themselves, but are bundled in with the work that you are directing, you are managing. So I just want to take a breath and just offer up a question for your reflection, and we don't have to write in the chat box or journal or anything. It's just sort of a quick moment to just think about the why of why did I get into this work? What drew me? And for some people, this is the term that we might use is call. Why am I called to do this work? For others, that term call is less meaningful, but there is still that question of why am I drawn to religious education? Why is it important for me to be doing this work? And I think if we can, as professionals, really take some time to sit with that question, maybe to wrestle with that question, maybe even to struggle with that question, I think that can make us better religious educators and give us just a sense of confidence and a sense of real. It can just help. It can help us grow into a real call to the work. So we're just going to talk briefly about the idea that we are in a system. We are part of a larger system, clearly, the congregational system. So what happens in RE is impacted by what happens in music, but it's impacted by what happens at the board, and everything is related. There are causal relationships between all of the different pieces and parts of the congregation. And so nothing that we do in religious education is unaffected by or does not have an effect on other parts of the congregational system. So that's always a good thing to keep in mind. There's a push and a pull that happens within a congregation. So if, for example, if there is a transition, a new minister, new religious educator, that affects, even if it's a new DRE, that affects every part of the system. If there is some misbehavior, perhaps disruptive behavior, that will impact other seen and seemingly unconnected parts of the system, but it's all one system. You're going to get this power. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but congregations are they are emotional systems, and they're based on how people within that system change and how they behave. But the system itself has some characteristics, and it's a tension between when we behave a certain way because that's the way it's always been done, or the system changes because we shift our behavior. So just a visual reminder of how sometimes there's tension in systems. And so what I do in my area will impact you in your area. And as staff, we need to know that. So one of the most important parts of being a successful congregational staff person or religious educator is really in how we develop and enter into relationships with the people that we are working with. These are our constituents, or our peers, or in some cases our supervisors. So these are the key relationships that we need to nurture and develop and maintain. And for many of these relationships, the idea of a covenant. So how will we be with one another? How will we, when we are in conflict, how will we resolve conflict? How will we talk about things that are bothering us? You know, what is the way that we will manage our relationship? Typically, we do encourage an actual written covenant for staff. If there is a group of staff, it's a good idea, you know, and that helps with that. How do I want to be communicated with? How do I see myself as a leader? And that all connects into what do I need from you to be my best self? And when I'm not my best self, how will we return to a good healthy relationship? Another really important key is understanding, you know, who's doing what, how much authority do I have in my position? You know, one of the things that is a helpful document, obviously, is your job description. I hope that everybody has a written job description at your disposal. I know that I was a religious educator in a congregation for 9 years, and I had a job description that was stamped draft the entire 9 years that I worked for the congregation. I don't know what that meant, but but it is good to have. You know, that's a good starting place for understanding who am I accountable to. You know, how am I being evaluated? All of those things are important to get some clarity around. Understanding confidentiality. And this is a place where there's tension when you have been a member of a congregation versus a staff person. All of a sudden, you know, how you hold information and the information that comes to you can change. People will be coming to you and telling you things that are very personal, and you have a responsibility to hold that information differently as a staff person than you might have as a friend or as an acquaintance. So that's a key thing to think about your strategy. And as far as your committee work, knowing when to lead and when to let them lead, when your role is to let others step out front and for you to just take a step back. We're going to chat a little bit about your own self-care, and this is a really important part of our work as religious educators. because how we care for ourselves can have a big impact on how we are able to care for those that we are serving. One of the things that is really important is to work towards a really healthy balance in your family and your work life. For those of you who are quarter time or half time, it can be a challenging job, and there's a real temptation to overfunction. And I can say that I was guilty of it. I heard Andrea say that she knows everything she knows about boundaries she learned by breaking them. So there are times when you're so passionate about the work, you're excited about the work, that the temptation is strong to give more than perhaps you should or you can, because when you are taking energy and putting that energy into the program, it's coming out of a different pocket. There's not an unlimited supply of energy and excitement and passion for our work, and so we have to think carefully about how we meet that out. Learning from the wisdom of your colleagues is really important. One of the things that is really important to learn as an early religious educator is that there are very few wheels that have not already been invented. And there is so much out there. There are so many resources. Almost anything that you can think of that you want to do, somebody else has done that. And so it's a wonderful community. It's a giving community. People love to share projects and things that they've been working on. So you shouldn't find yourself, in that panic moment of, oh my gosh, how am I going to do this? Because there are a lot of resources out there. I'm not going to go over all of these things, but these are, some of the things that I think are important for you to be thinking about. Certainly clarity is important. But claiming authority, this is one that's really tricky. Religious educators have had over the years, we have been largely women. That is, thank you, Bob, that is beginning to shift. But there has been a sense of it being a little bit of a marginalized group, and in terms of the professionals, and because of that silo thing that I talked about, there's also been a little bit of history of marginalization of the program itself. So sometimes we're a little reluctant to really stand up and claim the authority that we have. And so, I really encourage you to take some time to just think about that and think about what are appropriate ways for me to, how do I understand my authority as a leader in the congregation, as a paid spiritual leader, and how can I claim that authority in healthy and ultimately effective ways. And one that is important to learn, that I had to learn early on, is that when you are a director of religious education, director of lifespan faith development, whatever your title is, that D is for director and not doer. And some of you may be on the Facebook page for liberal educators. The other day, Sarah Palmer posted something about reframing her thinking about all the things that she had to do to get ready, that she was going to think about, that these are the things I get to do. And so, reframing that, and in doing that, you realize that I don't have to do everything. If I don't have the volunteers, if I don't have the resources, if I don't have the authority, if I don't have everything I need, then, there are things that we still get to do. We still get to come together. We still get to gather. We may not have as many classrooms as we want. We may have to go with a multi-age classroom. We may have to be flexible and give some things up. But these are all choices that we get to make, and that we should not feel like we have to do all the things all the time. So, just another moment for me to take breath, and for you to reflect. How will I be in this work? How will I take care of myself? How will I frame the work in a way that is healthy for me and for my family, and also in a way that allows the congregation to have responsibility and to have accountability as well for the religious education work that is happening. So, just so you know, the congregation has some responsibility as well for your self-care, for the care and feeding of a religious educator. Once a congregation commits to having paid staff, these are the things that they should be taking note of and offering or working towards. We hope that most of you have satisfactory compensation and appropriate time off. If you are a half-time religious educator, you shouldn't be working every Sunday. No religious educator should be working every single Sunday. It's we have families, we have lives, and there needs to be some recognition of, again, seeking that balance. If you are in a little bit larger setting where you're working 3/4 time or full time, we hope that there has been some accommodation in your contract for a future sabbatical. And if not, it's not too late. Those are conversations that you can still have. We hope that there'll be support for getting the professional development, the training that you need, and also to do that networking, to do that really important work of meeting people and learning who you can call and who you can count on. We hope that the congregation takes responsibility for supporting the program, for supporting the idea that faith development is really an important ministry in the congregation, and it's an important part of the whole community and the whole health of the community. That it matters, and that young people need to have opportunities to be in multi-generational settings. They need opportunities to worship, and worship needs to be for all ages, in a variety of different times and a variety of different ways. So finding balance is challenging, but just keep a little symbol on your desk. Find some little thing that sort of represents balance to you, and keep that where you can see it as you're doing your work, so that you can be reminded that that's something that you should be working towards and be thinking about. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of the real nuts and bolts of building that network, where you're going to find people and who you might want to reach out to. So these are some of the key relationships that a religious educator needs to develop and nurture and maintain. There's, first and foremost, there are children and youth. They and their parents are who you are serving. They are your constituents. They are your heart. They are why the program exists. In addition, volunteers and the minister, if you have a minister in your congregation, beyond the RE department, the members of the congregation, they are important. It's important to develop relationships beyond just sort of the folks who have been volunteering, who always volunteer, or the parents who we expect to volunteer. The more folks in the congregation that you connect with, the easier it is to find those people to come into a classroom. Hey, I need an expert on, I need a scientist, or I need somebody who has, who's a poet, or I need somebody who has experience in a particular area for a particular activity or a particular piece of the curriculum. And so the more you can build those relationships, the more you can invite those people into the program, and as they connect with the program, they can be turned into advocates and cheerleaders for the program as well. There are other staff and your district and regional staff. So in some way or another, all of these relationships are important relationships, and ones that you should seek out, not all at once, but over time. You should have a finger in all these pies. Lots of acronyms in our Unitarian Universalist world, just because UU is so much easier to say. If you are new to Unitarian Universalism, as well as being a new religious educator, some of these things you may be hearing us talk about. LREDA, we will talk about LREDA. That is our Liberal Religious Educators Association. There is a listserv, which is a great resource. We'll talk about that a little bit next time. And that's called the Reach List. So you may hear people talk about this, or you may see that in some of the Facebook groups. And the one thing I can tell you is ask. You know, we try to, when we're doing trainings like this, or in settings, cluster meetings, things like that, we always suggest that people take mind that people may not know all of the acronyms, and it's a very welcoming gesture to spell everything out as much as possible. So I told you that I was part of the Central East region. Within the Unitarian Universalist Association, there are 5 different regions, and some of you are from some of the other regions that are out there. We who do this work sometimes talk in shorthand, and if there are things that you don't understand, ask. If you are interested in making professional connections, and I hope that you are, there should be a liberal religious educators chapter, certainly in your region, and maybe in your state, or in a nearby, a neighboring state. And many of our chapters now of our professional organization are coming together in a forum like this. They're using Zoom to connect with other people. Hey, that's great. We can sit in our offices and wear our fuzzy slippers and build the important relationships, and learn stories about people, and learn where they come from, and hear their history, and find out some of the things that they're experts in, and ways that they can help us do our work better. There are a number of different listservs that are available from uua.org. And the easiest way to find things on uua.org is to just go there, and there's a search box in the upper right-hand corner. And I've worked for the UUA myself for 11 years, and that's how I find things on uua.org. I use the search box. So there are no keys, there are no secrets. Finding things on the UUA is sometimes a little bit of a treasure hunt, but there are many, many treasures to be found. There are Facebook groups, and we're going to talk about this also next time when we talk a little bit about resources. But if you are a member of the Liberal Religious Educators, there is a closed group that you can join. Everybody should be in the Unitarian Universalist Religious Educators. That is a fabulous group. There's so much in the way of resources and just good, solid support. It's not a private group. It's not a closed group. So it's not a place for sharing our sad stories, but it is a place where you can really learn and reach out if you're having a specific question or having a specific challenge. If you are in a smaller congregation, there's a group called the Tiny and Terrific Small RE Lab, which we highly recommend. If you are in a larger congregation, there is a Loretta Large group. If you are interested in Makerspace, or if you are currently doing Makerspace, and if you don't know what that is, you'll find out next time. There is a group for that. So people who are introducing the Makerspace concept into their RE program have a place to come together. Soul Matters, if you are in a congregation that is part of the Soul Matters group, which is a thematic ministry, they have a religious education Facebook group. So there's so many different groups. This is just a sprinkling. There are a lot of different groups that you can find on Facebook that are UU-centric and that are aimed at supporting religious education, youth ministry, all of those things. So again, professional networking. There is regional staff. There are still a few districts left. In our Central East region, we don't use that terminology, but in some places that is still so. And so that staff is there to help you navigate the larger system, to help you maybe with a startup. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. They can help connect you to the training if you're looking for some of the professional development. Your regional staff may know about some of that. We're also known as congregational life staff. So folks who work in the region are also part of the congregational life staff. So you hear those things, those are really sort of synonymous. There is staff that is Boston-based, and they work for the headquarters. That is typically the faith development staff. So that's Pat Kahn and Jessica York. If you have started following any of the Facebook groups, you may have seen them. There should be a local cluster meeting. Again, that would be something you might be able to attend either in person or by Zoom. The Loretta National Organization has an annual fall conference. It is taking place in Denver this year. So if you are able to attend that, either you have you're nearby, or you have some professional expense money that you can put towards that, I strongly recommend that. It's a tremendous networking opportunity. It's also a learning opportunity, and you will just it's a unique experience to be in the same room as 200 or 300 other religious educators, particularly when sometimes that we feel so isolated and so unique in our settings. To get out into the broader community is really inspiring. We do summer leadership schools. Andrea and I co-host something called RE Week at the Sea, and if you're interested in that, we'd love to come. Woohoo! Yay! And I know we've had a number of folks, maybe even a couple folks on this line who, well, I know some folks who signed up but maybe aren't here who were at RE Week.
Bob was there.
Bob, awesome. It's wonderful. And I attended RE Week at the Mountain. And so I know Christina was there. It's where I met Christina. So there are lots of summer opportunities for you as well. So again, I want to take a quick breath and just for you to think for a minute, or maybe even start to jot down some names. Who do I need to add to my mental Rolodex? Who do I need to have in my address book that I can contact? Who might be somebody who could be a mentor for me? Who is somebody who might be able to help me find the training that I need? So just think about who are some of the folks who can really help you be successful. So I just want to tell you again briefly about the training. So the sort of the foundational training for religious educators is called the Renaissance program, and there are Renaissance modules. If you do 5 of them, you get a pin and a certificate, and it would represent 75 hours of training. So we're spending an hour or so here tonight. So you can see that there is a lot more to dig into. And there are a number of different opportunities for training, for learning for the Renaissance program. Many of these are available online. Some of them are only available online, and some of them are mostly done in person. So if you're interested in finding out more about what Renaissance modules are available, the Faith Development Office of the UUA is the place to look. They have a calendar. Again, use that search box in the upper right-hand corner. I know that in the Central East region, we will be doing Unitarian Universalist history online this later in the fall, and then in the winter, spring, we're going to be doing an online version of the UU theology. So training is available for you. Andrea, do you have any thoughts on what they might? People always say, what should I take first?
Well, what should you take first?
That's a hard question because they're so good.
The administration module, if you can get to it, UU identity, those are sort of basic things about, just the creation and maintenance of your program.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, this new DRE webinar.
Right. And some of them, I mean, if you are, teacher development and curriculum planning. So if you're just getting into trying to figure out how to structure a program, the curriculum module can be a great choice for you. The teacher development, if you are just learning or if you have challenges around your volunteer, and who doesn't? We all do, let's face it. Volunteers are a precious resource these days. But there may be some, lots of good things that you can learn, good practices and some good strategies that you can pick up from the teacher development module. So
along the way, I always tried to get one member from my RE committee to go with me to be my work partner on that particular topic for a couple of years. So for example, curriculum, and then that person, we paid for them to go. And then they were my work partner on curriculum planning. Fantastic idea.
That is a great idea. There are also some more challenging, not challenging, bigger, longer, deeper classes that you can take. We have our online UU Leadership Institute, and there is a class this year on the death of Sunday school, which if you haven't heard about that, it's basically the idea that we are shifting from a classroom curriculum-based model to more of a family ministry, multi-generational, and how to rethink some of our underlying philosophy, and that's a shift that's just in process. So if you don't know about that yet, it's all new. So there's a number of other compassionate communication, nonviolent or compassionate communication is a wonderful class. And there are other on-demand webinars. Some of them are ones that I've done, some that Andrea has done, some that other folks in our Central East region have done. So they're all there for the taking, and the website is there, and again, you're going to get the PowerPoint. So
in the UU Institute, back up one, please. Yeah. In the UU Institute one, in addition to Death of Sunday School, there's one that she's doing Future Faith Formation. Yes. And those are more expensive than most of the courses, but they're for teams. Mm-hmm. Most of the courses are $30 a person.
Wow. Yeah. All right. It's 8:12. We're moving on here, so we want to have a couple minutes left for some questions. So just in terms of working with volunteers, just, these are some of the important work that we need to do with our volunteers, recruitment, orientation, support. So these are important relationships to develop. And as we are starting our work, we want to build good, healthy relationship with our volunteers. And one of the things that we talk about volunteer recruitment, but some people have shifted that to really think more about not how do we recruit more volunteers every year, but how do we retain the ones that we have? How do we really appreciate and recognize and train, and not just train in how, where the first aid kit is, but train more deeply in understanding the value of faith development and why we're doing this work. And that can be a retention strategy. Partners, our parents are really some of our most important partners. They are doing the religious education work 7 days a week, and we hope that there is a good, healthy connection between the Sunday work and the home work, the work that families are doing together. And it's important, especially to build relationship with parents where there are challenges. How do we make sure that we have good, strong inclusion strategies? And how do we make sure that we have that we pay attention to how new families are integrated? That we don't just welcome them on the first day and then from then on expect that they will find their way through the building on their own. It's helpful to connect, a new set of parents or a new family, perhaps with a family that's been attending for some period of time, create some kind of a buddy system. In terms of inclusion strategies, we'll talk a little bit more about that, I think, in the next webinar, because that's a little bit complex. We're going to talk about safety and inclusion a little bit next time. Some of the healthy communication practices that are important to that networking and to that relationship building work are if you are in conflict with people, how to stay connected and how to have hard conversations, how to understand boundaries, your boundaries and other people's boundaries, how to make sure that you are engaging in people in respectful, right relationship, authentic ways, and to understand where confidentiality is important. In our work, again, as once we cross that line into professional religious educator, people sometimes begin to tell us things. They begin to see us as somebody that they have a need to share, or just, they see you as, again, that small m minister, that you are part of their ministry team there, and so they will sometimes overshare. So we have to understand some of those boundaries. Finally, just in terms of building relationship, communication is really key. We need to be communicating early and often in as many different ways. I know people in congregations, communication is just always seems to be like, it's like a Rubik's Cube. It's like that unsolvable puzzle. We can never figure out, oh, but I didn't know that there was going to be this family ice cream social. Well, we had announcements. It was in the newsletter. We said it 16 times. We sent home a flyer. And somehow somebody always says they didn't know or they didn't hear. So we just have to have an overall strategy, and we have to be consistent with the way that we communicate. And that helps people to feel included. It helps people to feel respected, because they have information that they feel they need. So we're going to talk about some specific tools. Again, social media, email, GroupMe, group text. Everybody has a different way of a different preferred strategy, both on our side we have different ways we would like to prefer to communicate. It's much easier for me to send one email to 50 people than it is for me to call 50 people. But other people hear things, and they have preferred ways of hearing your communication. So kind of have to be aware of that and intentional around that. Many congregations are now doing electronic newsletters. I actually know very few congregations that have a written, a typed up and Xeroxed newsletter anymore. So a newsletter is now it's a different kind of a communication tool. It's more of an announcement, and there are more of them. Or we used to have a monthly newsletter. Now we have newsletters that could be as often as twice a week. So we have lots of different kinds of opportunities to communicate. And we want to be sure that we make the most of Sunday morning. How are we communicating with parents and with teachers on Sunday morning? There's a lot happening. There's a lot going on. It's easy to just sort of let things get lost in just the busyness of Sunday morning. But that opportunity once a week to actually be in a one-on-one conversation with a teacher, maybe a teacher who's having some classroom management challenges. Those things are really meaningful, and they help to build strong relationships over time. UU Parenting on Facebook, again, these are ways that we can reach out and build relationship with our parents by creating a parenting group on Facebook. And you all have to think about how you might want to manage that. There's a time concern there. Is there a parent who is kind of a Facebook person who would be willing to administer a group? Is there a way that you can bring parents together? Because not only is your job to develop relationship with these folks, but it's to also help enable relationship between them. And this is one potential tool. Twitter. Sometimes we use Twitter as a way of communicating and building relationship. I don't know. Twitter's kind of taken a fall recently, but Pinterest. Pinterest is a great way to communicate with families and to share project ideas, to share what's happening in the classroom, to share just stories and lots of fun things. So there are lots of religious educators who are using Pinterest to kind of consolidate things that are happening in the congregation. So those are all some communication ideas and strategies. Now we just have a few minutes for question and answers. I can take a breath. Kate had to leave us. Good. Think Orange got lifted up. That'll come up next time as well. We're going to mention that. Has anybody been to the Think Orange training? No. We're going to go, Andrea and I are going to Think Orange training soon. Later this month, later next month.
There was a request for a sample covenant between a minister and educator, and I have one of those queued up to email out. Although they are very personal documents that you need to spend time thinking about and crafting together.
Yes, absolutely. I would agree with that. The more personal they can be, the more tailored, not personal so much as really tailored to the responsibilities and the kind of that you have, the better. Yeah, that's good. Any other things? Oh, Pinterest group. Does anybody on this list have an updated Pinterest group? If you go on Pinterest I think you can search for UURE. There are quite a few that come up.
I'll find one and post it.
That sounds great. That would be wonderful. So we have just a couple of minutes left. So is there any, if there are no questions, is there somebody, Carol has a question. Yes, Carol. Is it, you typed it? I am looking back. Where is it? I'm not, oh, one new message is coming up. No, that's from, Carol, did you put a message in the chat box? A question? Because I'm not seeing it. Anybody else have any closing thoughts? Who's having the most fun?
Well, actually, I just finally got myself unmuted.
Oh, good. Okay.
Sorry, there was a blocking on the other side. Okay, so what is your opinion about volunteers, parents, sort of required versus begged?
Yeah, so I know that there are a number of congregations that, sort of structure their program as a cooperative program. And every family has to provide a certain amount of support, whether it is teaching or whether it is being an RE greeter, or maybe it's buying snacks for that week.
Serving on the board.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that has worked successfully in a number of places. But I think one of the things that you have to be careful about is just making assumptions about people and about how much time or how much energy people have to devote. So if we assume that every family that comes in has to teach, what about the single parent with 2 or 3 kids, one of whom may have some special needs? Is that a person that we want to have in the classroom? First of all, we may want that person to be getting the spiritual care that they may need, so that they can be a better parent, or just get some time off, or whatever. I mean, sometimes those cooperative systems, you just have to be careful that they don't become so rigid that there isn't flexibility to make sure that we understand people's stories, and that we understand that people have they have needs and stories that are not immediately evident. So,
okay.
Yeah. Anybody else does anybody do that in this group? Does anybody have some kind of a cooperative program? I mean, I think the general philosophy that we want everybody to contribute in some way is, I think that is appropriate. But I think it can get a little dicey when we start really putting really specific expectations on people without understanding what their circumstances are.
This is Amanda. We have traditionally run a cooperative program. This year it's really come to an impasse where it's, I'm not going to say failing, but I had more people turn me down to teach 1-2 RE than I've ever had before. And, we're going to really make a concerted effort this year to remind people that we want you in the classroom. But I think that was a really great reminder from you to also be mindful of everybody's circumstance, and that it's not always appropriate or able at that time. And I think we're always mindful of that. But I think our program in particular has run very well recently. And so I'm getting a lot of feedback from parents that it's run so well, why do I have to be there? I'm like, I can't afford to pay that much staff, or do I have that much staff in order to help the children? And we have a lot of children.
Yeah, definitely.
Where we're at right now. And it's kind of a hard place.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of the reasons that we're having this death of Sunday school conversation, is because many programs find themselves in that place where they're just the whole the paradigm of volunteerism has changed, and it may not be, and the way that we're doing Sunday school may not be serving the families that are coming through our doors. This is one. Is anybody doing Makerspace? I know I mentioned that before. This is a
Bob says yes.
who says yes, Bob? Yeah, you're doing Makerspace?
Yeah, we're just playing with it a little bit right now.
Mm-hmm.
But we're finding that some kids are really attracted to it, and others are saying, this doesn't give me anything, I'm not interested.
Right.
So, and we're in a technology-rich area. There are a lot of people who are drawn to technology, and a lot of the parents are drawn to technology. So they're generally excited about the concept, and it's important to draw a connection.
Yeah.
I think to meaning. If it's just making things, it might be a meaningful relationship building kind of exercise, but if we draw connections with meaning, I think it's that much more.
Yeah, absolutely. But it is, and it is another way of serving the children and youth that are there, that isn't dependent on a teacher, the same teacher week to week. It's not dependent on a curriculum. So there is a flexibility and openness to it. But I agree with you, Bob, that how we make that connection to different spiritual work is an important part of it. Yeah. Great.
I think too, asking people who they would like to teach with is important, so that they have a good relationship with their co-teachers. Getting more people involved in recruiting teachers, your entire RE committee, have the minister take a look at the membership and give you some names. It's really important, I think, to have your teaching teams reflect the diversity of your congregation. So not only people who are currently parenting small children, but elders and single people. I had a mother-daughter team once, which was fantastic. She was serving on the UA board, and her daughter was an elder teen, and they did a great job. So try to be as creative as we can. I know it is a challenge.
It is a challenge. Yep. Yep. Yeah. And so we have a lot of comments in the chat box. So I don't think we're going to have time to go through all of them, but we are going to send you out the chat, the transcript of the chat. Christina mentioned setting up a functional RE committee. And I know I've said this a couple of times. I've got a lot to deliver next time, right? But we are going to talk a little bit about RE committee structure next time. And there is a tremendous resource called the RE Roadmap. If you don't have, if you haven't gotten that, or if there isn't an old copy up on the shelf in the RE office, I recommend that you get it. It's very reasonably priced. I think it's $35 or $40. It's all PDF, but there's quite a bit of information there about creating, structuring, populating a religious education committee. So there may be some good strategies in that for you. If you have a copy of it, it was revised in 2016, I believe. So there is a newer version out there. So we'll make sure you get a link to the RE Roadmap. So I think if there are no burning questions, we are going to call it an evening. And we will return next Tuesday at the same time and the same meeting link number. And in the interim, feel free to lift up questions. I'm going to be sharing the PowerPoint. I will share the video, and I will also be sharing the roster, so that if you want to reach out to some of the other religious educators that you have met here, you will have contact information for them as well. Any last words from Andrea?
Am I muted?
You're good now.
Oh, okay. Thank you all for investing your evening in the health of your RE program and our larger faith. It's always an inspiration to me to work with a group of leaders.
It is, yeah. And I love to meet new religious educators. I know that, that the impact that you are going to have on the children and youth and families is greater than you can imagine.
Sometimes it takes a few years, but you get rewards in the end, for sure.
Certainly will. Yep, yep. All right. So that's it for tonight. We will see you, I hope, next week. And I will be sending you lots of things in the meantime. So,
Be well.
take care.
Bye. Thank you.